What's up, you guys? Welcome to Walk the Line. All fighters make weight for UFC Tampa. We've seen a lot of interesting line movement all throughout the week, specifically in regards to one fight. I want to shed some light on that. We'll get to that in a second, but you're going to want to stick with me throughout this video because I'm going to give you guys 3 prop bets that you're going to want to target, okay? I hope you guys are going to be tailing me on those, but you guys know if you're fading me on them, comment below. I want to know who's fading me on these prop bets that we're going to talk about here in a second. Before we jump into this episode, please guys, just hit that like button for me real quick. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. It means the world to me. Give me a nice little early Christmas gift. And if you guys like this video and you subscribe to the channel, it helps me take this channel to another level. And as I've been preaching, I got some huge things on the horizon for 2025. I cannot wait for them to unravel. You guys will see what I'm talking about, but it all starts with a little bit of support from you guys. Go follow me on my social media. It's scrolling below. I appreciate you guys a lot. Now, the line movement that I was talking about, specifically the one that stood out to me, is what we've seen happen with the main event over the last day. Colby Covington was around a plus 230 and now has dropped down to a plus 200. On some books, we already see him down in the high plus 100s. I expect him to settle in on a lot of sports books by the time the fight takes place, around at plus 190, plus 180. I think we still see more action coming on him. People are starting to wake up to what I've been talking about all fight week. The potential that Colby shows up to this fight in vintage form. And if he does show up in vintage form, how much of a problem he would be for a fighter like Buckley, who's not necessarily proven. He's been looking great. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. We could dissect some of those wins and how Colby would look in those same type of matchups. I'm not trying to take too much away from Buckley's performances, but if Covington shows up in vintage form, he's the fighter that should be the favorite here. Everyone's turning their back on him because of that Edwards performance. What if there is truth to the fact that he was suffering from altitude sickness going into that fight? We know he went out to Colorado early in the fight week leading up to the Edwards fight. He says he had very bad altitude sickness. What about if there's a lot of truth to the fact that he broke his foot in the first 30 seconds of that fight? You could run the tape back. You could see where he threw the kick. We've seen x-rays put out there. Okay, if he was fighting for 25 minutes against a high-level fighter like Edwards, who's more proven than Buckley, and that fight even played out as competitively as it did, if his foot was severely impacting his performance, okay, and now he's healthy for this matchup, if you don't think that this fight could look completely different, and all right, let's erase that Edwards fight for a second. Let's erase it. Look at all the fights that he had prior to that, okay? Where we're talking about the best performances that we've ever seen from Colby. The Masvidal fight, even both of the Usman fights, even though he lost both of those, I think that you guys wouldn't argue with me. Those are probably some of his best performances, all right? The first one, he gets finished in the 5th round, but what a fight that was. That might have been the highest level welterweight match that we've ever seen. It's right up there. What a great fight. He was in path to winning that fight before getting stopped in the 5th. The rematch, a lot of people thought that he won that fight. In the mix of that, finishing Woodley, dominating Masvidal. And take a look at this too. Colby Covington, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights, he fought to the 5th round, okay? We've never seen Buckley past the 3rd round. So if Colby shows up healthy and ready to go, I'm just telling you guys, you talk about a value line. I think that the value is on Colby, but Buckley is a very dangerous fighter. If he hits him with that one shot, there's no question he can knock Covington out. He can knock anybody out. But you take a look at his last fight too, right? Against Stephen Thompson, he was possibly en route to losing that fight. It was very close going into the end of the fight, right? He gets to finish halfway through the 3rd round. Thompson may have been up in that 3rd round, which would have been the deciding round of the fight. The judges had it 1-1 going into that 3rd. I think that Colby Covington would mop a Stephen Thompson right now. I think that he would ragdoll him around the octagon and dominate him. So just to kind of understand where Colby would fit into that matchup. Nursultan Rozaboyev, I think Colby would dominate Rozaboyev. Vicente Luque had a great bounce back fight, but he's had some very questionable performances. And I think that Colby would handle him as well. So just to kind of put things into perspective of how Colby would look against the level of competition that Buckley has had in his last 5 fights, the Andre Fialos, the Alex Moronos. I think that Colby just runs through those fighters as well, and people are just kind of turning their back on Colby. Right now, Colby, right around a plus 200. I think the value is on Colby. I just wanted to say that real quick. All right, guys. Besides that, let's go get over to some prop bets. You guys know if you want my official targets for this card, reach out to me. I have a huge slate set up for UFC Tampa. I got some huge targets. I'm telling you guys, shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram or Twitter, and I will give you guys some further information about working with me there. And the last thing I'll say before we jump into these prop bets, if you guys are looking for a new sports book, reach out to me. I will give you my referral link to BetUS, the best sports book out there. You'll get a 150% match on your first 3 deposits, and I'll give you an additional gift, an early Christmas gift, if you sign up through my link. All right, guys.
The teller.
The first fight I want to talk about is one of the more fun fights on this card. Davy Grant taking on Ramon Tavarez. If you guys didn't catch it, I did pick Davy Grant to win this fight. He was an underdog at the time. He's now closing in as a slight favorite. We've seen a lot of action coming in on him. He was one of the other fighters I was talking about where we saw action coming in on the underdog. Besides Davy Grant and Colby Covington, though, make no mistake, the favorites have been getting slammed throughout the week. Now, Grant has still never been KO'd as a pro. You have to respect that accolade there, especially when you understand that out of his 20 professional fights, more than half of them have been in the UFC. All right, 11 of his fights have taken place in the octagon. He's fought some stiff competition. It's never been KO'd. I'll tell you what, I think that there's a realistic chance that we see him knocked out for the first time here. He's 38 years old. He's getting up there in age. He hasn't been extremely active. And Ramon Tavarez is a fighter that has shown plus power in his hands, and he shows to be a headhunter. Okay, this isn't a guy that's really attacking you in a diverse manner. He really looks to take your head off, and if he finds the mark, we may see Grant knocked out for the first time. Okay, on the other hand, I think it's realistic that we could see Grant get a KO here too. Ramon Tavarez has been knocked out twice. In both of his losses, he was knocked out. I think you guys know where I'm going. No matter how you want to spin it, I think that this is a fight where we see a finish. I think that this is going to be a fight where there's a very high pace to it. I think they're going to clash. And if you take a look at the available lines, we're not talking an under 1.5 round here. We're talking under 2.5 rounds that you can get at -105 right now. You could have got it at +120 on BetUS back on December 8th, about a week ago. But that line, even at -105, it's somewhat appetizing to me. When I look throughout this card, this fight just kind of stands out to me where I see a very high pace to it, and I see a very strong possibility that somebody makes a mistake and they're finished up. And at under 2.5 rounds, you're talking essentially you have almost the entire fight for that finish to happen. It's most likely going to happen in the early portion of the fight. Let's jump up to the main card. Over to the light heavyweight division, we have Navajo Sterling taking on George Tokkos. This is a fight where I really do expect to see some type of wild finish take place. When you take a look at both these fighters' resumes, there's not a lot of fights going to a decision, win or lose. Sterling looked phenomenal this past season on Dana White's Contender Series, where he got the contract. He had the big knockout in that headliner of the episode. He fights out of Team City Kickboxing under Eugene Barman, and this is another fighter that fits the mold for Eugene to push into a lot of success into the UFC. Has that kickboxing background. I expect Sterling to follow the footsteps of Israel Adesanya, Carlos Ulberg, Kevin Jousset, and Sterling at just 27 years old. You could argue he has some of the best intangibles out of all those guys. I mean, he's really a physically imposing fighter. He needs to refine a couple things, but he's a fighter that I could see having a lot of success in the octagon. This is a great UFC debut match for him. George Tokkos, a tough dude. He's dangerous in his own right. You don't want to underestimate him, okay? If you're Sterling, you don't want to just try to walk through him because you could run in to your own problems there. You can get clipped with the shot. When you take a look at what Tokkos is doing in the cage when he's winning fights, okay, out of his 10 victories, he has 6 knockouts. He even has a couple of subs there, okay? When he's winning a fight, he's getting a finish for the most part. And then when you take a look at his losses, he's getting finished for the most part as well. He's finished in 3 of his 4 losses. Tokkos kind of has his back up against the wall here. This is a must-win for him, if you ask me. I think if he loses this fight, we probably don't see him in the UFC ever again. He's 34 years old. He's not young. He did take his last fight on short notice, so the UFC kind of owed him one here. Tokkos surrounds himself with a lot of big names in the game. Maybe he has some pull in that sense, but we need to see something from him here, and I expect him to have some real urgency in this fight. I expect these fighters to clash. Realistically, I think it's very likely that Sterling is going to KO Tokkos, okay? But you also have to be a little alarmed from what you saw from Tokkos in that UFC debut match against Umar Sy, where he was subbed in the first round very quickly. Didn't look like he really knew what he was doing in those grappling exchanges. Maybe Sterling even show some flashes with his grappling. I don't know. Throw that in there as an X factor. Of course, the knockout that he took against Xingmeng Yang, that was a tough one as well. These are early KOs. But again, look at the success that he's having too. Early knockout victories in the vast majority of his wins. All right, so I think you guys know where I'm going with this one. This is a fight where I am looking at the under 1.5, okay? We want this fight to end before it hits the halfway mark, which you can get at plus action at plus 120 over at BetUS. I think it's very realistic. We see an early finish. It's very realistic. We see a finish in the first round here, in my opinion. I would lean that's the way that this fight takes place. And again, I think that it's Sterling that actually hits Tokkos with a very damaging shot and shakes things up and probably knocks him out. Okay, but I do like the under 1.5 in this fun matchup that will start getting the main card buzzing. And then let's slide over to the bantamweight division where we got Daniel Marcos taking on Adrian Yanez. Yanez, extremely dangerous offensively, 11 knockouts out of his 17 victories. He can go out there, he could finish anybody in the division on the right night. Okay, his boxing it's nasty. Okay, it's heavy-handed, it's slick, it's technical. Defensively, I have a lot of question marks in regards to that aspect of his game. I think that he's a fighter that shows to have a little bit of Garbrandt syndrome. I think if he's tagged with a big shot, we could see him knocked out. We've seen him knocked out in 2 of his 5 losses, but realistically, more recently is where he's taken a lot of damage, and I think that he's starting to slow down. Even though he's just 31 years old, he may be a fighter that has a little bit extra mileage on him per his age. I don't know this to be fact, but that may be due to him sparring a little recklessly. Besides that, he grew up around a boxing environment. His dad was a boxer, so he's probably been trading with the gloves from a very young age, and he probably just took a little bit too much damage. And maybe even if you say the chin is not what you're worried about, maybe you say, his chin's not that bad. You've seen him take some big shots and kind of push through it. Defensively, he gets caught looking at his work often. All right, he throws these heavy combinations, and he's there to be countered. His hands are a little low at times, and we've seen him clip with some counters, even though he's only been knocked out twice as of recently, and one of them was due to the leg kicks of Jonathan Martinez. Even in some of the fights where he was victorious, we saw him hurt and tagged with big shots. So kind of like what I'm saying is yeah, we can give him credit for withstanding some of the damage that he took. Like when you think about the Randy Costa fight, he did push through that damage, but I don't like a fighter that's playing that type of game. And after that fight, you're starting to see him on the decline with the way he's taking those shots, right? Rob Font finished him up brutally. Daniel Marcos is a fighter that puts a good amount of volume out in the feet. He's pretty technical overall. And with Yanez being so aggressive, coming in looking for his own finish, I could easily see Yanez finished in this fight. And I can easily see a finish either way from either fighter. Maybe Yanez lands that big shot and gets Marcos out of there, hands him his first L, let alone his first knockout loss, even though a lot of people thought that he lost to Davey Grant. But take a look at what we're looking here. We'll highlight the under 2.5 for this fight, which is at plus odds, plus 110 for the under 2.5, if you want to have that finish coming from either way. But I also want you guys to take a look at Marcos to win this fight via knockout, which you can get as high as plus 200. Okay, I think there's some real value there. I most likely see Marcos hitting Yanez with the counter striking and getting a KO. I just see Yanez's chin starting to catch up to him over the next couple of years. Mark my words when I say Yanez will be knocked out brutally in the octagon for sure within the next year or two. Okay, as he continuously steps down there, he may have his own success, but he will get knocked out. He plays that game. He jumps into the fire, and Marcos is getting better and better, and he's decently technical. He can hit him with the counter here. I like a finish in this fight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. Let me know if you're tailing me or you're fading me. I want to know regardless. Hit the comment section up below. Tell us your favorite prop bet for the card. We love to get that type of feedback. I see people bouncing their ideas off each other in the comment section. I also check all the comments, okay, guys? And make sure you guys are hitting up the comment section more extensively, because what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to go to the comment section and I'm going to kind of answer questions and highlight some of them in some of these videos that I do mid-fight week, okay? So dive into that comment section. Please like this video. Like I said, please subscribe. It means the world to me. If you guys want to work with me for my official plays, don't forget, reach out to me. I'll give you further information there. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. Hope you guys are enjoying the beautiful weather that's going on in my neck of the woods. Hopefully it's nice by you guys. Maybe it's a little too cold by some of you guys. I don't know. Let us know how the weather is by you guys, man. I appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.